Hey guys, welcome to Masquerade of Motherhood, or as I like to call it, the Mom Show. I'm your host, Courtney Doyle, and this is a place where I am giving you permission to not have it all together. I have some really exciting news. Due to the response from the podcast, I have decided to take the Mom Show on the road. Yep, you heard that right. I am looking to partner with mom groups, small groups, women's events, or Bible studies. They could be in your home or in your church. I want us to join together and remove the masks we wear and claim our identity in Christ. If you're part of a group and you would like for me to speak, follow the link to my website, CourtneyDoyleMinistries.com, and complete the request. Hey guys, welcome back to the Mom Show. I have a question. Do you ever just go through life being a mom, busy mom, and you think, I just do what I do and I can handle it all? And so that's how you operate. You operate from a place of getting it done. I can totally relate to that. And so can today's guest. My guest is Robyn. She's a dear friend of mine. She's a mom of 3. She's in ministry. She's a podcast host. She is a busy mom like the rest of us. But her youngest daughter was adopted at 20 months from China. They knew going in that she had a physical disability in one of her legs. What they didn't know is what the ultimate prognosis and outcome would be until they returned to the States and had her evaluated by doctors. The story is actually better than what they anticipated when they were in China picking her up, but it has not been an easy journey. Mamie is 13 years old and has had 17 surgeries to correct a deformity in one of her legs. Robyn shares with us what it has been like to go through that medical journey with her daughter, what it's been like to go through 17 surgeries out of state, both physically and emotionally, both for her family and for Mamie personally. Robyn's story is encouraging, and it gives us hope that really, no matter what you're facing, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to feel all the things that you need to feel, and it's most importantly okay to know when you need help. I hope that you are encouraged and blessed by this conversation, just as I was. Without further ado, here's my guest, Robyn. Guys, welcome back to the show. My guest is a sweet friend, and we have been laughing. I almost forgot to hit record so we could actually get into the meat of what we are talking about here. Robyn, I'm going to turn the mic over to you. Introduce yourself to our listeners. Tell us a little bit about who you are and answer that statement for me. If I said, Robyn, if you cried out and said, help, my child is, so tell us who you are and fill in that blank for us.
I can do that, Courtney. I'm so excited to be here. We've talked about this for a long time. And so I'm Robyn Kown, and I live in Birmingham, Alabama. I am married to Charles, have 3 kids who, that's why we were laughing before this call started, is have 2 boys that are 17 and 15 and a daughter that's 13. And for work, I work for the Storytellers Live Ministry. And so I do a podcast as well. And that's kind of a little bit about my life. And I'm here because our youngest is adopted, our daughter who's 13. And so my answer is help. My daughter has a disability and it prevents her from doing a lot. And we have done a lot of travel for medical needs. So
Let's start with the adoption. Let's go back.
okay.
And can you share with us about the journey to adopt? What made you choose to adopt? And you adopted her from China. And so
Yeah.
let's talk about that. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
I wanted to adopt internationally, honestly, as long as I can remember. I knew in high school I wanted to adopt. And I remember, this was very bold of me, but I remember telling my now husband on our second date that I wanted to adopt a child that did not look like us. And we were not talking about getting married on our second date. I just think that he needed, I don't know, apparently I just needed him to know that I was looking like that was on my heart and had been high school, college. And so we said, let's have a baby. Once we got married, let's start having kids. And if we have trouble, that's okay. Have trouble having kids, that's okay, because we knew adoption was on the table. And so we got pregnant very quickly with 2 boys. Our first son wasn't super planned. Second son also wasn't super planned. And when the second one was born, in the hospital, I remember looking at my husband and saying, I want to adopt a girl. And
Mm.
so we gave it a little time. We did go home, have a newborn, go through the whole thing. But when he was, gosh, maybe not even a year old, I can't even remember. But not quite a year old. We started the process. And so we did a ton of research, decided at the time, so this was in 2010. So at the time, China was kind of the big place where people were adopting, and every adoption was a special needs adoption. But in China, a special needs adoption could be a birthmark. It was cleft lip and palate. It was not all of those are minor needs, but it's not special needs like we would think of in the US. It's not all mental
Interesting.
and brain. And so it was a missing finger on all these things. And so that to us, because our boys were so little, by the time we really kind of started on our paperwork, they were 2 and 4, I think, is where we were somewhere along there. But our kids
Mhm.
were very young. And China it was kind of the well-oiled machine of adoption. You knew you knew the time frame. People were adopting from Africa, but it could have been years. And because
Mhm.
we had young children, we kind of wanted a system that we knew how this was going to go. And so early on in the process of adopting, they give you a list of all of the special needs, and you mark kind of what you're willing to take, which is a really, gosh, I think the older I get, the more sobering that is. When you're in
Mhm.
process, that sounds very like everybody's doing it. We were all adopting together. But now looking back, I'm like, wow, what a list that we had to fill out, that we had to check the boxes, but we did. And so we were open to very minor needs, which at the time, there was a lot of those. Because our children were so little, we weren't looking for major needs, but we also knew that the Lord was going to direct our daughter regardless. Like he was going to
Mhm.
bring her to us no matter what. So we filled out all the paperwork, went through the process, and then so you got matched when all your paperwork is in and everything happens once a month. The list came out, and so you knew when the list was coming, and most people were getting matched immediately, and so we did not, and it was heartbreaking. We did not get a match. There just wasn't a child available on the list that matched our criteria. And we just were like, okay, Lord, it was really hard though. And then about a week later, we got a phone call from our adoption agency, and she was like, a child has popped up on the list, which means somebody got her file, looked at it, deferred it, said no, thank you, and it went back into the system. And
Mhm.
so it came to us, and we looked and we said no, thank you. I said no, thank you. Her left femur was much shorter than her right. And so she had what's now it's called a limb deficiency. And I was like, oh no, that sounds huge. That sounds like a very overwhelming diagnosis. No, thank you.
She
She was 20 months. At
20
the
months.
time, she was 14 months. She came home at 20 months, but she was 14
Okay.
months at the time.
But it was 14
Um,
months when you got the paperwork and the femur
yes.
was
And
okay.
her file and everything. And what's funny is my prayer is that my husband and I would be on the same page. I thought he was going to be the one that was saying no, 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 no. And instead it was me like, oh no. And I think we can do this. And we had 48 hours to make a decision. And so
Wow.
I was on my knees praying. We were talking to all of these doctors, sending her medical file to everyone we knew, which is kind of what you do in the adoption process with these when you're back at this time. And all these doctors are like, oh, her leg will for sure have to be amputated. You're looking at a prosthetic. We got all these varying answers, but the common ground was a prosthetic. That's where everybody kind of was the same. And I was like, I don't know if I can handle this. Um, and so for 48 hours, we were just on our knees, and I was like, God, I need a sign. I need a
Mhm.
prosthetic leg. I need a prosthetic salesman to knock on my door. I
Mhm.
need a plane with a banner behind it, like for an ad for prosthetics. I need a sign. Um, because it just felt very daunting. And so my husband we have a place here that's great called the Lakeshore Foundation. It's really one of the top rehab facilities in the world for people with varying limb deficiencies. And it just happens to be 5 minutes from our house. So I was like,
Wow.
go there while I'm researching this. You go there, take a tour. If she's going to have a prosthetic, we know that's where we're going to be, like to get all these different services. And And in the meantime, we knew when we had a daughter, her name would be Mamie. We had known that our whole lives. And since we had been married, it's a family name on both sides. And so he came home and he just hands me this stack of paperwork. And this, we had to make a decision about 8 o'clock that night. And this is that afternoon. And he hands me a stack of paperwork. And there's a magazine for the Lakeshore Foundation and all this. And so I'm like flipping through it and I open it to the middle. And there is a picture of this beautiful older woman. And across the whole top, her name was Mamie.
Are you
And
kidding me?
yeah, so that's it. And I was like, Lord, we have our answer. She is ours. And that's important because of what we've walked through since. I will never get rid of that magazine. I'm like, Lord, if our house catches on fire, that's the one thing I will pick up is
Yeah.
that magazine with her name. That was just confirmation that she was ours.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
What a sweet reminder that he's present in and answering those prayers. You asked for some pretty specific, "Hey, I need an
Oh,
airplane."
oh
And he
yeah.
was like, "You know what? I'm not gonna give you a general. I'm gonna give you her name. I'm gonna
Her name.
a physical representation of this
Yeah,
belongs to you."
yeah,
So you decide in 48 hours
yes,
that you are bringing Mammy home,
yes,
and you are expecting that you're gonna get a child at home that's gonna very quickly, I'm assuming, need
yeah,
to have her leg amputated.
yeah.
Tell us what happens. She gets home. What
So she
happens
gets
next?
home. We get to China and she is walking. And I was like, first of
Hmm.
all, to have a child with any kind of physical disability that's walking, they weren't, that wasn't a thing. They were usually left alone. And because they just assumed they couldn't walk. So they were left in their crib or in a different so anyways, we get there and she is walking. And I was like, this leg kind of looks okay to me. Like it's shorter and she has a limp. She's walking like this and she has a limp, but she is walking. And I remember we called the doctor from China in the US and sent pictures that, well, I guess we didn't send pictures at the time because this was in 2012. Um,
Mhm.
but we were going back and forth and he's making it when you come back, we'll see her immediately. And so we did. And he was like, this looks like a pretty good leg to me. I do not think you need to amputate it. And I am so sorry I told you that. Like he was really upset with himself. So then all of a sudden everything shifted and we went from having a child whose leg was going to be amputated to having a child with a, it's now called CFD, which is congenital femoral deficiency. And it means
Okay.
her femur grows at half the rate of her other one. So her left femur grows at half the rate of her right. And she's just born that way. It's not, you can't pass it down. It's not anything. It's just something that happened in the
And
womb.
just one bone. That's so interesting
One.
to me that one
Mhm,
bone in her entire body just grows.
mhm, mhm. And
That's
so thankfully Facebook was a thing at this point. It was
yeah.
a very young day, but it was great for us. And there was a group an online Facebook group for help with people with this condition. And it took me, I'm sure it took me weeks to get there, but we had we had 6 months from when we were matched before we brought her home. So I think I had kind of done research in all different areas and I'd heard about this thing called limb lengthening. And that's what you can do is there's a few specialists in the world, one in Baltimore, Maryland, and I did not want to go to Baltimore. I had no interest. We were just going to stay right here in Birmingham and receive the help she
Mhm.
needed until we walked in the doctor's office in Baltimore. And I was like, every kid in here looks just like her. We will now be traveling to Baltimore.
Okay.
And yeah, so that was our journey, very long journey to lengthening her legs to even. That's the beginning.
And so how old was she when she had her first surgery?
She came home at 20 months. And then at the age of 3, on her third birthday, I don't know why, on her third birthday, she had hip reconstruction. And that was the beginning of everything. So her hip
Okay.
wasn't in great shape. They reconstructed her hip so that you can then lengthen the femur. And then starting at the age of 3, and now she is 13. And so in 10 years, she's had 17 surgeries.
Oh my
Mm,
goodness.
yeah.
That's more than one a year.
Yes, it is. We had one in May and one in June of this year. Yeah.
And the recovery, I would assume, just basing it off of a hip replacement. My father just had a hip replacement. You're looking at
Mhm.
least 6 weeks.
Sometimes it's been 2 years, and sometimes it's been 6 days. So, everything it depends on the surgery. There's a lot of
Mhm.
small outpatient surgeries that to most people would be a big deal, but to us, it's, that's nothing. It's just putting a little plate in her knee. But
Just a little plate.
yeah, and those are nothing. Like, "Oh, it's fine." No, I am not personally putting those in my leg. So,
Right.
it's really easy as the mom to be like, "Oh, this one's nothing. It's not a big deal." Also, I'm not feeling the pain of that. But we have had 3 leg lengthenings, and that is what is a process. So, you have the surgery to start the lengthening, then the lengthening takes 6-ish months. Lot of PT, daily work, and then at the end, you stop that, then you have another surgery to remove all the hardware from her leg. So every time you lengthen, there's typically 3 surgeries in that process, which is why it can take 9, 12 months. And then we had to
Mm.
during COVID, we had to redo her hip again. And so that's the one that took almost 2 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
13. That's a
Mhm.
lot.
It
That's
is
a
a lot.
lot for a child to endure
Yeah.
and for her
Yeah.
mom, which I guess brings
Yes.
me to how have you and let's go back to you already had 2 small children. Like, you
Yeah.
jumped into this with babies,
Only because we had the magazine.
right?
Only because the Lord said yes. So we knew that he was with us on this path and it was the path we were called to. But early, I think you go in naive. Oh, this is fine. We're just so thankful she's here and
Mm,
the surgeries aren't going to be fun and flying to Baltimore is not going to be great. And so you go in kind of, even with her first lengthening, I'm like, we are going to do this everywhere we go. We're going to be looking who we can pray for and encourage. And let's see what the Lord says about the bus driver today. And how can I encourage him? That was
mhm,
early in our path. That
yeah,
did not last. What I learned along the way, that's fine and that's great, but I wasn't feeling my feelings. And she was young, so early on, the surgeries are not as much of a you're getting to the next one, there's not much memory from the last one, unlike now.
mhm, mm,
It's a much bigger deal now. But yeah, really jumping into my story is that I was like, we're gonna do this. I'm so capable. I really can handle honestly, I can handle a lot. Like the Lord has equipped me to multitask and be able to do a lot of things. And that can be a positive and a negative. But I was like, we're
mhm,
gonna do this. And people would say, how are you doing that? But I don't know. We just do it. Like we just do it. And that was my phrase forever until I couldn't use
mhm,
that phrase anymore. Was
mhm,
we just do this? It's part of our life, and yeah, we have to leave the boys, and yes, it stinks, but it's the boys are learning how to that the whole world doesn't revolve around them, and there was a lot of truth to that, of course, but there was also a lot of denial and a lot of I can do this on my own, a lot of I'm so capable, I can do this on my own, I don't need help.
mhm.
um,
Mm,
I don't now, but I
sorry.
would do surgeries by myself. Like I'd take her to Baltimore, she'd have a surgery, and we'd hop back on the plane the next day and come home.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
When did you realize I can't do this on my own? I think that that's a we talk about masks on this show, and so I think the "I can do this, we've got this, we just do it" is a
Yeah.
probably a really pretty mask to wear,
Oh, it
and one
is.
that we've all I totally understand what you're saying. When did you realize, "I actually can't do
Yeah.
this by myself, and I need to
Yeah.
remove this mask and maybe seek some outside
Mhm.
support?" Was there a
There
defining moment?
there was, and it was a really hard fall very fast.
Mm,
Um, because I was good at just doing it. We just do this. And it was during COVID. She had a leg lengthening right before COVID hit, like maybe November of 19, she had a leg lengthening. So come around to March 2020, and we're still working on that, going back and forth to Baltimore every few weeks. And that's what we do in that process. And she got an infection in her leg the week before COVID hit. So we were in the hospital for 8 days while this thing called COVID is starting. And
mhm,
they're testing, like we had to stay there for 8 days to make sure that they were sitting in the hospital. And and it was miserable. And schools are getting canceled. Everything's starting. Schools are getting canceled, and we're able to fly home, thankfully. But because of that, she was not mobile for the whole rest of it. Normally when kids go to school, it's kind of a natural PT for them. It's kind of a
Mhm.
natural physical therapy. COVID hits, she's not going to school, she's not moving. It's the PT's even closed. You can't get in
Mhm.
anywhere. And then that year she went through a growth spurt. She grew 4 inches after we had lengthened her leg, and it pulled her hip out of socket. And it
Gosh.
was March of 21. I will never forget. And so already you're in a bad state, like nobody's in a great state in March of 2021 emotionally.
Right.
And we have to fly to Baltimore to have hip reconstruction. And I, because we have boys at home, we do a lot of back and forth. And I knew that I had had a lot of trouble. She was starting to have a lot of trouble in surgeries, anxiety, all the things, anything you can imagine after you've had that many. And it was really starting to affect me emotionally, but I wasn't sure what to do with it yet. I had kind of been looking for a counselor at this point. I was so capable. I didn't even have a counselor, didn't even have a
Mhm.
therapist.
Mhm.
And now I'm
Mhm.
starting to look for one. So I know I'm going to take her on the front end of the surgery. I'm going to handle the front end. The back end is what's harder. And then you have to get through the airport and all the stuff with her. So I'm going to let my husband do the back end. And we went into that surgery, and I'll just say it was not pretty at all. I was a mess. She was a mess. She came out of surgery a mess. And there was a huge storm, and my husband could not get out of Atlanta airport.
Mm.
And I can see this like it was yesterday. I He finally got to the hospital with an hour to spare for me to get back to the airport. We passed in the hallway at the airport, and I took his Uber back to the airport. Like, we did not have 30 seconds together. He literally came in, and I went out and took his same car to the airport. And then I got stuck in Atlanta in the airport because of the storms, and my flight got canceled.
Oh, no.
And I was so undone that I got a hotel room and took an Uber back to Birmingham because there were no rental cars because of COVID. I literally took an Uber from Atlanta to Birmingham, and I did not get up off of the couch for at least a week. And I was
Oh,
not
wow.
okay. And
Mhm.
it hit so hard, so fast that it was instant. I was like, I am not okay. Who can see me? So I started emailing and messaging therapists like, who can see me? I'm coming. I got on 20 cancellation lists, and I knew I was in trouble. And I was. I had to stop everything. I had to take a step back. It was rough, but I got to the counselor, got to the right therapist very quickly. The Lord opened the door. Who
Mhm.
she has me for life now. I hope
Mhm.
you like
Yeah,
me
whether she
because
wants
I
you or
am
not.
not going anywhere. And very quickly she said, we're going to do multiple things. We're gonna do this the old fashioned counseling way. We're going to get you on some medicine, and we are going to do some brain treatments, EMDR, and this thing called microcurrent neurofeedback. We're doing the holistic approach to the medicine approach. We're covering it all, and we're going to talk through this. And that was May of 2021, and it has been a journey ever since.
And so that Mammy would have been 10, correct?
Yes, yes, she was 10.
What do you now that you have had the therapy and you've done the things, what do you think it was that sent you into this spiral? Can you pinpoint, was it the
Mhm.
trauma of walking this
Yeah,
child through this?
it was the undealt with trauma. I
Mm,
should have been in counseling from the time she was 4, the time she was 3,
mhm.
like somebody to help me do this. But instead, I carried it all myself. And I knew the Lord, I knew the Lord so deeply, but yet there's still parts of us that are like, oh, I got this. I think
Mhm.
I didn't even know how to ask for help. Um, and my mom would come and stay, or my mother-in-law would come and stay. We had that kind of help. Or people would bring meals when there were surgeries, but I was not reaching out for real help. I wasn't I wasn't even dealing with what was happening internally. I just was like coding it with, I'm so capable, I can handle this. until
Mhm.
my body was like, oh no, no, you actually cannot. This is not normal behavior. This is not normal life for anyone. And in fact, as a body, I am not going to let you go any farther until you deal with this. And my
Mm.
body just stopped. Um,
I think that's such
so,
a good message, though, regardless of whether you're a mom and you're facing a child with such a
mhm.
severe situation like what Mammy has dealt with and the surgery after surgery, it really doesn't matter. I think a lot of times we go into motherhood, and if we are doers and we can
Yes.
handle a lot, which I can
Yeah.
totally relate to that. I don't know, maybe it's just me, Robin, but have you ever felt like the more you're doing and you're successful in doing all the more, it's almost like it's a pride thing, like it's a pat on the
Oh,
back of
yeah.
look at all I can handle. I can just do it all. And then you
Yeah.
get stuck in that tornado of doing it all until what you just
Yes.
said, your body revolts and says, "Wait, hold on a minute. You
Hmm.
can't. You can't." But
Yeah.
it's a
Like,
role I think a lot of moms pick
yeah.
up
That, oh,
and
just start
know.
believing this lie from the enemy that you can't ask for help. And I've always been
Mhm.
an open book, which was what was so strange for me. I would tell anybody anything about what was going on, but I wasn't able to recognize how challenging this was. Like, I
Mm.
wasn't able to say, "Hey, you know what? This stinks." Like, we do not, and I, in hindsight, I was putting that on her as well. A counselor told us at one point when she was in counseling, and she looked at me and she's, "You're doing her a real disservice by painting everything as roses. This is not easy. This is not fun. And you need to let her feel her feelings and be angry about it." And I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
"Well, I thought I was being such a good mom by doing a song and dance."
Uh,
When the reality was, I'm sure that her counselor saw that in me of, "Hey, you don't even know how crappy this is. You don't even know how to step back and say, hey, can we just go walk? Or can, like, to me, if I was telling somebody what to do if they found themselves stuck in this position of really not knowing how to ask for help outside of the meals and the basics of like family babysitting and meals, I would say let your friends know that you are hurting. To me,
mhm.
that's asking for help. It's, hey, I am not doing well. I need to rest. I need to take a step back from work. I need to allow myself to lay on the couch and watch TV for an hour and zone out. I need to not constantly do the dishes and the laundry and the whatever. And when people ask if they can do something, the answer is yes.
Mm.
Because usually that's it. I'm like, I don't want to inconvenience other people. I'll inconvenience my family, but I don't want to
Yeah.
inconvenience other people. And so, no, if I don't let them know, I'm not allowing them to use their gifts. Their gift
Mhm.
may be to come clean my house. I do not want you to come fill my house. I would feel horrible the whole time while I was
Yeah.
laying on the couch and you're cleaning my house. And they're like, no, that's what I want to do for you. That's me
Mhm.
using my gifts for you. And it was learning to accept that kind of help.
Right. That's such a
Mhm,
good point what your counselor said though, that what it was how it was affecting her.
mhm.
And it was preventing her from feeling all the emotions that she needed to feel because what you said earlier, when she was younger, it was just another surgery. She didn't have a lot of memory of it, and I would be willing to bet that there was such lack of understanding because of her age.
Right.
That she didn't really understand what was happening, and then now you're talking
Yeah.
about a 10-year-old. She's
Oh,
fully
yeah.
aware of what
She's
continues to
fully
happen to her
aware.
body
Mhm,
and
mhm.
the process and the pain, and I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine having to face
Yeah.
yet again another surgery
Mhm, mhm.
and
No.
not just the physical side effects of those surgeries, but the emotional side effects, the
Oh, the
social side
emotional,
effects.
yeah, it's 10 times the physical. The physical, and I think she would say this too, like that goes away, but
Mhm.
the mental does not. The
Mhm.
trauma is very real. And I think that was another thing is that to me at the time, 3 years ago, trauma was like losing your husband, losing a
Mhm.
child, like major trauma, going through some kind of cancer. Trauma wasn't going through 17 surgeries where you have to take a plane every time. Now I say that and I'm like, that's ridiculous. Of course that's trauma. But I didn't allow, I felt like I couldn't think that way.
Mm.
It's just the enemy, just not telling you everything's not a big deal, or you're overreacting, or you're exaggerating, or no, 17 surgeries where you have to get on a plane every time pretty much stinks.
Right.
Pretty
Right.
much stinks.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. When you say that, I'm like, no, that is very traumatic because
Right.
I don't want to get on a plane to do anything. I have a
Oh,
terrible
I
fear of
mean,
planes.
well, and
So,
I do because of this. Like
yeah,
my biggest panics and my biggest triggers are flying. Uh,
interesting.
so.
Yeah,
We've worked
because
through
you're
that
you're
in
now
counseling.
tied. You're tied that it's tied
Yeah,
to
yeah.
something
Tied to
very
trauma.
emotional and very stressful.
Yeah,
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 absolutely. And so
yeah,
with those emotions, those ups and downs, you've had to balance your ups and downs, your husband's, your daughter's. How
yeah,
else though in this like medical journey with your daughter, how have you been able to balance being supportive and being there for your other children? We keep going back.
yeah.
There's two more boys that are
Right.
witnessing this.
And I would love to say that my boys are so sympathetic to everything around them. And let me just be clear, they are not. Let me be clear that they are 17 and 15 and typical in every way.
Mhm.
Uh, but when they were little, it was very challenging. And so,
Mhm.
for one, we've always scheduled her surgeries in an like in a time. Both my boys play lacrosse. They both played competitive lacrosse for years and years. So we've always planned her surgeries in the off season. And so
Yeah.
most people do them in the summer. We do not, because that is our family time. And so in the summer, now last summer we did because we didn't have a choice because something went wrong. But typically we keep our summers as family. And so that the boys aren't disrupted and lose their whole summer to a
Yeah.
surgery. And then when they're in school, it wasn't as hard on the parents to come help because they're in school, and we would have carpools for school and practices and that kind of stuff. And so, as long as they were busy when we were gone, that was very helpful. And we tried to, so we had a lot of surgeries in January, which is a very strange time to do in Baltimore because you get ice done and you get snow done. And it
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
great for the flight schedule, but it worked really well for our family so that we could be there. January, not much is going on anywhere. And
Mm.
when they were younger, especially, we would do that and then make sure that we had our summers of fun. And that's also why my husband and I started taking turns with surgeries. Was that somebody was always here for the boys, but I
Yeah.
also learned from my counselor that that was not healthy for me. And so now that they're older, it's, hey, Dad and I are both going, and I tell them I cannot do this by myself. It is not good for me. It is not good for Mamie. And y'all are old enough to know that this is hard, and it's hard on you being at home without us, but it's also hard on us being there. And so we've also become much more open to the fact that this isn't easy on anybody. And part of that's just life. And
Yeah.
then part of it, we want to bend over backwards with the boys
Sure.
to to make sure that they can fit in everything, that they don't miss out. They miss out on things for sure, but that they don't miss the majors because of
Right.
surgeries.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard to navigate, but it's also and it may
Mhm.
not be something that they see now, but I think as they get older, they'll be more aware of how you did purposefully
Probably.
try to
I hope so.
manipulate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. Like you said, they're teenage boys right now. They probably don't know anything outside of what, their
Listen,
friends or the
if we were flying to Baltimore tomorrow, they may not know, and they may not even know that we were gone. And we would come back next week and they would say, "Do you have dinner?"
unless they needed food. That's when
Right.
they would be like, "Wait, something's off. Have you
Yeah,
seen mom?
yeah, yeah.
Dad? No, no,
Did
they're
they
not
leave
here."
us money for Chipotle? I don't know.
Yeah, you leave them gift cards to Chipotle, and yeah, they're fine, they're fine.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that about boys, though. I love the ease
I
in
know.
boys in that
They
manner.
they are easy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are
So
easy.
since this moment where you realized, "I can't do this on my own," how have you began to prioritize some self-care
Yeah.
versus spreading yourself so thin in the
Mhm.
midst of 3 children who need you, 1 who needs
Yeah,
you a lot more right now?
yeah,
How
yeah.
do you do that?
I do not cook.
Good for
I know.
you.
Listen,
We're gonna
I
pause
sort of
right
cook.
here and go to
Uh-huh.
Lord in
Mhm.
prayer.
I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at, and I have learned
Okay.
that. I loathe cooking. I do it, but I'm like, I cook tacos and spaghetti kind of thing. And I don't let myself feel bad about it because I could beat myself up. And my husband does not love, my husband wants a real meal every night. And some areas have just had to give. And
Okay.
putting food on the table, I get food on the table. Everybody is fed. And
I love it.
that is my accomplishment. But also, I will tell you this, I brought this book right here. This book was the second part that changed my life after counseling, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I don't know if you've read that by
I have
John
not.
Mark Comer. It was everything I needed after I realized how much I was doing. Um, is everybody, the bottom line to this book is everybody is busy. Jesus was busy, but he was not in a hurry. And
Mm.
I was like, and that's the line for years I've now carried that. Um, so it's okay to be busy. We are busy. Like life has a lot going on. But when I'm hurried and frantic, I do not do well. I don't think
Mhm.
anybody does well.
No.
Um, and so I do take, I know myself, I'm an Enneagram 9. I need some rest. And so in the afternoons, I really do take 30 minutes and just do nothing before carpool and the kids come home. And so I've learned little things like that that help
Mhm.
me be a better human, and to be able to process. I just give myself 30 minutes of downtime. And sometimes it's getting in carpool line early and reading a book, but it's, I'm
Yeah.
going to shut off work for 30 minutes. I'm going to shut off house and mom and wife for 30 minutes. And I'm just going to sit here. And then not stressing myself out over,
Mhm.
I hadn't done, I got 82 loads of laundry that need to be folded on the counter. And I haven't planned dinner again this week. And my husband so sweetly will say, there are people that do meal planning. And I'm like, that's great. However, am not interested in that.
I love that for them. I don't love that for me. But it's good, and like you said, you don't hold any guilt for that. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm not good at.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
so important for us to, delegate in areas
Yeah.
that can be delegated. I ordered something so silly. I ordered balloons for the Super Bowl last
Yeah.
week. We were having people over, and the checkout guy was like, "Do you want these delivered?" And I was like, "How much is that gonna cost?" I don't live far from
Uh-huh.
Party City where I was getting them, and he was like, "Oh,
Uh-huh.
it's free delivery." And everything in me wanted to say, "No, I'll come pick them up."
Yes. Yeah.
It really did. And I was
I
like,
know.
"No, it's okay." And he looked at me, and he goes, "You don't you don't want them to be delivered free,
For free.
like, to your doorstep on Sunday?" He was so perplexed that I was like,
Yes.
"Oh, no. Let me make another."
Yeah.
I mean, I had to think
Let
about
me
it,
try
Robin.
and fit 50 balloons in the back of my car and then hope that one doesn't fly away.
Or
That
po
is me 100%. That is me
Yes.
100%. Oh, I do not want to inconvenience you. So by all means, I will inconvenience myself to go pick up these stupid balloons so
Yes.
that I don't inconvenience you, who's already offering to help me.
And he just looked
Yeah.
he was young, and he just kinda looked at me like,
Tell
"What
me
is
you
wrong
changed your
with
mind.
you?" And then I was
Change your
like,
mind and say yes.
so, like, then I had to, like, inquire. I was like, "You're gonna deliver them? Like, blown up?" Like, I was like, this was a difficult concept for
Yes.
me. He
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like,
I hear you.
"Yes, ma'am." And there's no charge. Like, and he was like,
Mhm.
"No, ma'am." And then he says, "You can tip the driver." And he said, "You can tip the driver now." He said, "Or when the driver comes," he said, "a lot of times people wanna wait and do it when the driver comes just to ensure that everything's the way they want it." And I was just the whole idea was so foreign, and I was like, "Yes, yes, I
Yes.
do wanna do this." And then
Yes.
it was so great. It was like the stupidest thing,
I
but
get
it
it.
was off
I
of
get
my
it.
plate,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm getting the food ready for Sunday afternoon. I'm doing other things, and when the doorbell rang, Scott was like, "Who's here?" And I was like, "I have no idea. I totally forgot." And I go to
Yeah.
the door, and there are my balloons, and I was like, "Oh, look at that."
You
I mean,
accepted their help.
yeah, it's a
You
silly.
accepted their help.
I
I know.
did. I accepted
I
help,
know.
and I think that in a lot of ways, we don't accept others' help even
Yeah.
when it's free, it's offered,
Right.
they're joyful to do it. We're like, "No, no,
Yeah.
no, no, I've got it. I've got it."
And if
Why?
that's not like the most perfect parallel to Jesus,
Yeah.
he's, I already got this. I already paid for it. It's free. Why are you insisting on driving to pick up the balloons when I've already given you everything for free?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
It's the most
absolutely.
simple thing that we cannot grab a hold of. Like, I
You
didn't
are,
ask you to carry all of this. I did not ask
and
you
we
to
keep
do this.
questioning. Mhm,
Mhm,
mhm.
mhm,
Did you ever feel okay, there's a good segue into, did you feel, because of the magazine, because of such clear evidence that
mhm,
God had chosen her for your family, did you ever feel like, because it was so specifically chosen, she was
mhm,
so specifically chosen for you,
mhm.
did that ever weigh on you that you had to have it all together? God
Probably.
entrusted me with this child,
Mhm.
and so I have to have it all together. I can't fall apart in this because I believe in Jesus. Jesus loves me. Jesus chose her for this family. It's
Yeah,
in a magazine.
right.
And if I don't do it the way I think it should be done, then I
Yeah,
failed.
probably. I don't know that I could have verbalized it that way. Um, but yes, it's I think there's very much some God, you made it so clear that she's ours. So we're going to do everything we can to get her the best care with the right doctors and the it kind of thank you so much for making it clear. Now we'll handle it.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. I think probably there was a lot of
Mhm.
that. Um,
Mhm.
especially early on. Especially early on. Uh,
What kind of encouragement would you give to a mom who's listening that is like, she's in a situation where maybe she has a child with a medical condition, or like in this case, a physical um, disability that is requiring a lot out of her emotionally and physically and her child? What kind of encouragement would you give that overwhelmed mom who is just, this journey is exhausting, and I
yeah.
don't feel like I'm equipped?
Mhm. I would say one, allow yourself to feel that way. Allow yourself to recognize and accept how difficult it is and not feel bad, not feel guilty for asking for help. And listen, if I always think of women whose children are permanently in wheelchairs because when
Mhm.
Mamie's in a wheelchair, it is so hard. And she's only in wheelchairs for short seasons and they are so heavy and it is so complicated. And so I think especially of those women who are dealing with that kind of disability that's permanent,
Mhm.
that kind of mom to go, it's okay. Even if every day is so hard, it's okay every day to cry out to the Lord of the hardships. Sometimes you just want to
Mhm.
be seen. I think that's the other thing is that when your child's going through so much, you just want somebody to see you. And so
Mm,
I would also say to that mom that I see you, that the
mm,
Lord sees what you do behind closed doors every day in and day out to take care of your child, and it is not going unnoticed.
mm,
And you may feel undervalued. You may feel
mhm.
like nobody sees it, but if nobody else sees it, the Lord sees it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. That's
So
so sweet. And I do think that I cannot imagine what you experience with these surgeries and with her health and these past 13 years. Um, and I think it's easy for us as moms to think we're forgotten.
mhm, mhm.
And I think it's also easy to feel really guilty that you feel like this isn't
Yeah.
fair and this
Yes.
isn't fun,
Yeah.
and be angry and not be okay. It's okay to not be okay with the
Yes.
situation. You can't
Yeah.
stay there. We can't stay in the
Right.
closet of confusion and
Yeah.
frustration and
Yeah.
anger, but it's okay to go in it every now and then and get it out. You're
Yeah.
going to feel a
Get
lot
it out,
better.
write it, cry it, do whatever needs to be done. And
Mhm.
yeah, because it's hard. It is hard.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Momming already is hard. You start adding
right.
layers to this.
Yeah.
How blessed she is, though, that God chose you.
Well, she's a pretty special kid. Um, it we will look back on this when it's all said and done. And there's already a story to tell, but
Mhm.
I know that in time we'll look back and go, wow, really in heaven. In
Yeah.
heaven, our prayers that we'll see her birth parents in heaven
Mm,
and just say, thank you for letting us do this.
yeah. How
So,
is she today? Where are we at in surgeries and process? She's a
well,
13-year-old girl.
13-year-old girl, which she's always been our easiest. And so I never thought that we would have a 13-year-old girl, but in fact we do. She she has gone, she has hit the moods.
Yep.
But physically she's doing okay. We're having a hard time strengthening her leg after these last two surgeries this past summer. We've had a lot, there's a lot of science in this. The muscles don't, they're thinner. And so she's had a
Mm,
lot hard time getting strength. So we're doing like crazy kinds of PT that are really abnormal and out of the box to try because her legs are even. That's exciting. Her
okay.
legs are even for the
Yeah.
first time in her life as of this
Wow.
past summer. But she still does not walk without a limp. And so we're working on strengthening those muscles. And then she will have one more surgery. I don't know when. Again, it's an outpatient, not big surgery where they remove all the hardware from her leg, from her femur and her tibia. So it's a big deal, but it's outpatient. So it doesn't feel like a big deal. She will have that at some point, maybe May, June, maybe we'll wait till September. I don't know. It's kind of up to her at this point.
Okay.
Um, that's another thing we've learned. The older they get, it's got to be on their time frame. They have to be
Mm,
ready. And when she tells us she's ready to have it out, the doctor has said, we're good. You can have it out whenever. Her bones are fine. Um, so we'll have that out. And Lord, let that be the last one.
okay. So it could
So,
potentially be the
yeah,
final surgery.
yeah, it could. We we beg and plead with the Lord that it is.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
She's fully grown. That helps
Yeah, that's what I
when
was
we're
gonna ask.
growing. Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
no,
Interesting.
we'll see. Yeah.
And through these surgeries, have you also I know that you have put yourself through therapy. Have you also has
Mhm.
she been in some sort of therapy to talk through the emotional side of it as
Yes.
well? That's good.
And that's something that took her a little while too. When she was young, we would go to counseling, but I would have to sit with her and I was her voice. She was very quiet, very reserved, did not want to talk. So I would talk and then she would tell the counselor if I was right or wrong. It was
Oh,
very
love it.
fun. It was I don't want to say it was a waste of time for the counselor was great, not her fault. Waste of time and money on our behalf. Um, but this past year, yes, we got her in full-time counseling. Like she's gone weekly for almost a year. Um,
Mhm.
and we found she had to be ready for it. So we could send her, but again, I was her mouthpiece, and that was not very
Mhm.
helpful for either of us. And I couldn't speak to her trauma. She started before our major surgery. She had the major leg lengthening in May. And so I think we started with her in January before
Mm.
that surgery on counseling. And she's now engaged. And that is a lot of just maturing.
Yeah.
And she's got a lot. She's got a lot of surgeries. She's Chinese in a white community. We're a very white community where we live. And there's a lot. So we're she's 13 and we're all in. Um,
Yeah.
but she is getting a lot of help. And so too, if that's you, if you're that mom whose kid doesn't want to receive the help or doesn't know how to do counseling or doesn't feel comfortable, it will come and
Mhm.
and they will get there. And sometimes you wish it was sooner, but it doesn't help until they're ready.
Mhm. And I think what you said, though, about her being younger and maybe it feeling like a waste, at the same time, you also set an example that
That's
this
true.
is a
Yeah.
safe place for us
Yeah.
to go and
Yeah.
have these conversations, and so it was something that she wasn't afraid of or wasn't weird
Yeah.
or odd
Yeah. That's
early
true.
on.
That's
So
true.
it probably
That's
wasn't
true.
a waste. It was a
Yeah.
seed being
Yeah.
planted in her that
That's
this
true.
is good. Yeah.
Yeah. That's very true. So yeah.
How is she navigating being 13 with a disability, with being from China and
Mhm.
social settings?
It's hard. It's
Mhm.
hard. I think at this age they can't quite verbalize it. They can't. They We've done a lot of work with her counselor ourselves, and so what her counselor tells us right now is teenagers are set up to fail. Their amygdala, and she loves Jesus, so we're good.
Okay.
We know that, but their amygdala is flaring. They have 8,000. Their brain is on fire, and their prefrontal cortex is not developed, so they can't do anything with all of those emotions. And I would say
Mm,
that's where we are, is all of this is coming to the surface because she's maturing and old enough to recognize it, but doesn't know what to do with it. And
mhm,
so that's why she's been in counseling weekly for a while, is let's find this trauma, let's work through this trauma before it presents itself in terrifying behaviors, which it can.
mm,
But before we get to that point, let's try and pray through this, deal with it, recognize that your life is not easy, recognize it has not been easy, but God has been with you. Hear the
mhm,
things, and then the brain, the science of it. Her counselor talks to her about it all the time, about just how her brain's working. And also, if you're an adopted parent or a parent of a child who walked through trauma, take heart that this is very normal in the teenage years,
mhm.
um,
I mean, it's
of the
hard
brain
enough.
firing. Yeah,
Yeah. Let's just
yeah.
take a child that's born in like your boys. Let's take children that are born into a family. They're not
Oh,
adopted. They're not from a different country. They don't have a disability.
right.
13 to
They're fully
18.
able. Yeah,
This
yeah,
is, it is hard. This is a really
yes,
difficult time because of all the
yes,
emotions and the hormones. And then we take into account the pandemic that these kids went through and the anxiety that that
right.
brought in and
Yeah,
all the social media and you should look this way and you should act this way. And
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It
it's,
all comes together.
yeah.
It has all merged, and then yeah, hormones are a real key,
Mhm.
real joy to mix in with all of that.
Right. Oh, absolutely. But kudos to her counselor that she's able to like you said, give language to something that she probably otherwise would not have known is
Right.
happening in
Oh, for
her
sure.
brain. So she's
And
not
to
like,
give
"Oh,
us
I'm
that.
so weird. I shouldn't feel this
Yeah.
way." Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. She has been awesome.
Mhm.
So very, very thankful that the Lord put her in our path
Yeah.
to
Let's
meet with
just
us, to work with
normalize.
us and with Mamie. Yeah.
Can we just normalize that it's okay to not be okay
Yeah. Yeah.
and to ask
Yes.
for help and to seek counseling and to feel all the feelings that we should feel? We don't have to filter our feelings. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
100%. Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, what an incredible story that you guys have, and I'm so grateful that you're willing to share that with us. I'm so grateful that God has just walked you through this every step of the way, all the way from a magazine article with
Yeah.
her name saying, she's chosen for you, and she was
Yeah.
chosen by me. And so before we head out, will you share what is something, Robin, that you're praying for right now?
Mhm.
And do you have a verse that you could share with our listeners?
Yes. Okay. I'm going to have to read my verse. And I
Yeah.
tell our storytellers this all the time. I'm like, it's okay to read. It's okay
Oh,
to
yeah.
read your scripture. I'm like, I'm the world's worst at memorizing. So I give you full permission. But
Absolutely.
something that walked me through this season in particular, but that I still hold on to today. I don't know if you're familiar with the Passion Translation of the Bible.
I
Um,
am.
I love
That's
it.
okay,
And
so funny. Hold on. Funny story. See, I love when God does this kind of stuff. I
uh
was
huh,
doing
uh huh.
research for a presentation that I have tomorrow, and I was looking for a specific word in scripture. So I was in a concordance looking for it, and I was online, and the Passion Translation came up. And
It's
it was the
amazing.
translation.
Yeah.
I was like, "This is exactly the word that I was looking for."
Uh huh.
Um, and I kinda paused. I was like, "The Passion Translation?" So, see, I love when God does that kinda
Oh,
stuff.
I know.
Like,
It's
what are the
amazing.
chances I'm gonna I
Yeah.
literally this was
So
at
now you're
11:30,
gonna,
and I hop on an interview with you at 1 o'clock, and you mention it.
because you're a researcher, you can go research. Brian Simmons is who did the translation, and he's fluent in Hebrew and Greek and like all these ancient languages. So he was a anyways, it's amazing. I won't go into it.
I love it, and now
But
I'm gonna research it.
it's yeah, go research. But it's Philippians 3, which most people know, but in the Passion Translation, it says, um, was talking about running the race and doing all of that. And, but then
Mhm.
it gets to 13 and it says, I don't depend on my own strength to accomplish this. However, I do have one compelling focus. I forget all of the past as I fasten my heart to the future instead. And
Mm.
so that's it. I'm like, we're running this race. I'm in ministry. I love encouraging women. I love watching them change. I love what God does. And so like I'm all in. I'm still running this race, but it is not up to me.
Mm.
And whether it's Mamie surgeries or the strength, just running the race of her surgery. It's been a
Mhm.
very long 10-year race that is not complete. And so it's
Mhm.
okay. We are running this race. There are days that we would like to quit. There are
Sure.
days that we would like to say no more. But it's not in our strength. And so we're going to run this race.
And I love that it says not to
And
focus on the past, but to look to the future.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a great encouragement. I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. Thank you so much for your time, for your story, for your
Absolutely.
willingness to
I have
share.
loved it. You're
It's
the
been a
best.
blessing.
I've,
Thanks.
I've really enjoyed it.
Right back at you.
Thanks so much.
Remember to check the show notes for links to the books and all of the resources mentioned in today's episode.
If you want to print, screenshot, or share this week's verse, head to the show notes where you're going to find a link to my website and a graphic for you to use. Thanks so much for listening to Masquerade of Motherhood with Courtney Doyle. We want to be sure this blesses you and other mothers. And in order to do this, first, you must subscribe. This way you won't ever miss an episode. Also, if you'll rate and review this podcast on iTunes or wherever you're listening, this will increase our reach to other mothers who need a little encouragement, a community, and a whole lot of Jesus. We're so glad you're here.